Hey, thank you so much for tuning into the Stock Shot Show. My name is Kyle Morris, and today we are launching the first episode as to what is the Stock Shot Show about. And that, quite frankly, is about what it is in the title. That is hitting stock shots. Now, if I were to just sit here just to show that I think it's actually very important that I can actually hit a stock shot, right? Because it's kind of hard to teach something if you can't do it. But you can see that what I'm going to be doing here is hitting balls, and the same ball is just going to be carving the same channel out of the sky. This is a stock shot. So you can see it's got the same start line. It's got the same curvature. It's always the same shot, and that's what you're trying to build. That's what I want to help you do right here in the Stock Shot Show. So the stock shot was really introduced to me in 2008. I had the luxury of sitting down with Jack Nicklaus Friday of the Memorial Tournament at his house for 2 hours, and we sat there and we talked about a bunch of things. And one of the things that he said that I'll never forget is he goes, Kyle, when you play professional golf, you need to have something that you can rely on. I had for him was like a little fade. I had a stock shot and I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I want. I want to have a shot that was dependable so that I could, because I knew that hitting greens in regulation and hitting fairways was like a really, really important stat to making money and providing for my family. So I went on this manhunt to learn how to hit a stock shot. And it wasn't until I was about 25 that I came across my mentor, if you will, and his name was Mike Bender. Now, Mike, he taught me a ton of stuff, and he would use the same semantics and the same words that Jack Nicklaus was using of like hitting a stock shot and hitting a reliable pattern and the same curve. And I was like, yes, this is it. And he kind of helped navigate the road as to how to do that. But through all of these things, through the studying after I met with Jack Nicklaus in 2008 and learned about the stock shot, what I went on is I went on this ridiculous manhunt to figure out what are all the similarities that all tour players have, all tour players that are good ball strikers. Because listen, let's be honest, I could sit here and I can do some really wonky things with my swing and really like crazy like this and hit shots and go, oh look, like it's a great stock shot. But the problem is that a good set of hands can make the golf ball do just about anything. And I didn't want to rely on my hands under pressure. I didn't want to rely on timing. I wanted to build a swing that was built around physics and efficiency, a swing that had the most amount of time for the least amount of compensations rather than the most amount of compensations in the minimum amount of time. And that's when I went on this manhunt. And I found something. And when I found it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the thing. Like if I could do this because they're all doing it, I will finally have this stock shot. And the truth of the matter is, it was hard. I had to work at it, and I definitely had to practice it, and I had to learn how to practice it. But it was something that really, like, I felt like all people could do. And when I started teaching when I stopped playing professional golf in 2014 and started teaching, I was like, this is what I have to do. I have to help people hit the stock shot. And what it all revolves around hitting these points, and the points are called steep, shallow, steep. And if you can hit these steep, shallow, steep points, this is going to give you the idea of how to hit a stock shot. And that's what I want to spend this first episode is I need to essentially indoctrinate you as to what is the psychology that we believe is proper for the golf swing, because we are not reinventing the wheel like every week. There is a script in which we know the golf swing should be done, and if you follow this script, it works. It works because it is what built these four walls. It is what helped me be an amazing ball striker on tour and an amazing ball striker day in and day out to where I can not even practice and still hit really good shots. Because when you have these principles in mind, that's what you can now accomplish. So let's get into kind of like what the ins and outs of this steep, shallow, steep is. So let's go over here to the computer and let me show you what all the models are doing so that we can start to model that inside so that we can do our stock shot. All right, so let's look at two models, and I think we would all agree that Tiger Woods and Tommy Fleetwood are probably pretty good, so we should just use them as the model to show, hey, what are all these tour players doing, and what is this steep, shallow, steep? So let's start with Tommy. So I'm going to draw a line up the plane, and that signifies just the swing plane. Now, as Tommy is going back, you're going to see the shaft is going to work up the plane, and the shaft at halfway back looks inside the ball. That is the first steep. Then he goes up to the top, shallows it, right? And as he shallows it, now the club looks outside the ball. So he went back steep, he came down shallow, and then he's going to go through, and because he's shallow, he can now rotate and control the face with his pivot to where now the shaft looks back inside the ball. So it goes steep, shallow, steep. Tiger Woods, same exact thing. And if you look at all of the models, they are all doing the same thing. So I'm not really reinventing the wheel here with what we're teaching at the Golf Room Everywhere. I'm just a really big nerd, and I studied all the swings to figure out what do they all do. So Tiger Woods goes back a little steep. Then he comes back down, and you can see the shaft is more shallow. So he goes back steep, down shallow, and now rotates. And now the club kind of looks back inside the ball to where now the club is steep. So he goes steep, shallow, steep. And it doesn't really matter who you look at. It's all, they're very, very similar. So like Chella Choi, if you look at her, she also hits it really, really well. So if you go back, so here's plain, you can see she goes back. It's going to be a little bit steep. Then she's going to come down, and it's going to be shallow. And then she's going to rotate, and then it kind of goes a little steeper, kind of a little bit of a throw on that one, right? Because she probably didn't hit the ground. But, you know, goes to show that even tour players have their things that they need to work on as well. No swing is perfect, right? And so it's kind of like these similarities that when you start to really look at these videos, all of the swings have the same pattern and structure to what they kind of do in their swing, right? They all have this steep, shallow, steep look to it, and that's really what's allowing for the efficiency of the swing to really take place. So that's what you can kind of look for in your swing for what you're doing, and it's really, you know, at the bare bones of these golfers, it is really what all tour players do and why all tour players hit a consistent stock shot is this steep, shallow, steep. But then the question becomes is what are the drills or the feedback drills that we need to do to actually make that take place? And that's what we really want to help with, right? We want to give you the formula or the recipe so that when you're practicing, you can actually create some of these steep, shallow, steep motions. So now that you've seen that all tour players are doing the same pattern, all reliable ball strikers are following this steep, shallow, steep pattern, we want to give you ways in which you can actually do that and practice it. But what we need to do first and foremost on this Stock Shot Show is we need to teach you the foundations to build that. Because listen, if you don't have the foundations, then everything else is a compensation after that. I was actually going to the golf course the other day, and I was having a guest. He flew in from Arizona. His name was Michael. And I was walking on the range, and there was this another gentleman on the range, and he goes, "Hey, Kyle, like I just saw your video this morning." I go, "Oh man, that's great. Like, what are you working on?" He goes, "I watched the video on like not hooking it." I was like, "Huh." He goes, "Yeah, I think I'm too shallow." I was like, I don't think so, but let me take a look really quick. And he's setting up, and he looks at he's setting up on the range, and he's hitting, and his feet are way to the right, like 60 yards right. He hits a shot, and it goes way over here to the left, and he goes, "Yeah, see, I hit pull hooks." I'm like, "No." Or I hit too big of draws. I was like, "No, that's a pull hook. Like if you just had the face open, you did a slice. That is not what we're prescribing." And it was all built upon the fact that his foundation was wrong. And we need to make sure that your foundation is correct, because now if your foundation is correct, now you can start to build the swing of a lifetime that you want to hit that stock shot. So that's what we're going to be doing in the next episode. So be sure to tune in. If you like the Stock Shot Show, be sure to be sure to subscribe, and then be sure to send this off to your friends, because listen, what golfer doesn't want to hit stock shots? So we'll see you next time, and thank you so much for tuning into the Stock Shot Show.